Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Open Book Author Interview Series featuring conversations with authors about the moments their platform changed everything and what it takes to build a lasting career around their work. Today, I'm here with Lauren Kahn, agent and debut author to be. And actually, we've connected through Threads, didn't we? That's the first time we met was through Threads. So
Yeah.
cool. We'll get into that. But hi, Lauren. So happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me and congrats on the show. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, so I definitely want to talk today about what it's like to have to talk to two different audiences. But first, why don't you share a little bit about who you are and actually why you have two audiences that
Yeah,
you are constantly talking to?
absolutely. My name is Lauren Kahn. I am a literary agent at Fine Print Literary Management, and I am an author. I'm repped by Jessica Maleo at Inkwell Management, and we're in edits right now to take my novel on submission in the fall. It's a thriller, and actually Jessica beta read for me, so thank you very
Yes,
much.
I
So we're
did.
connected in all the ways. But my platform is really about it's so funny that you say that about balancing those two things, about how I'm both a writer and an agent. I'm seeing things from both sides. And also, I would even say I throw in some mom stuff in there too, because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, I'm writing before my children are up. I was up all last night with my 1 year old, and then just had to pull it together and come to a podcast. So
Yeah.
it's a balance. But I think writing and this career, publishing in general, it's a lifelong pursuit for me. This is not like a one-off thing and then I'm going to go do something else. Like, this is my life. And so I have to find ways to build it into my life. And I think that's what the platform has allowed me to do, is just to showcase this is who I am, this is what I love, and I'm just going to share things that either bring me joy or, provide a light bulb moment. It's just my life. And I feel so lucky that I have found something I love so much that it just is so seamlessly interwoven in my days, versus before, when I was a corporate attorney for 10 years, it was not. I felt like I was showing up to work as one person and going home and being someone else. And so I think when you can find something that is just so authentically you, it's really easy to share about it.
Okay, everything you just said, I love so much. And I had three different answers I was going to say to you as you were talking. The first is, have you heard of the phrase leisure ethic?
No, tell me.
Okay, so somebody taught me this phrase and it's become a hyperfixation moment for me for the past 6 months ever since I heard it. And essentially leisure ethic is the opposite of work-life balance, which is definitely what we try to have when we have the careers like your corporate lawyer career, where work is over here and life is over here and we're balancing living through both of them. Where I think what you're describing with publishing and author and agenting is more on the leisure ethic side, which is where work brings you passion and is seamlessly interwoven into your day, where there isn't the balance as in one goes on this side and one goes on this side. It is the ethic of the day is it balances going through both. Work fits seamlessly into the day. And yes, we'll have to put the actual definition in the show notes. But I think that is the concept that we, in this creative world, whether you're an artist or a writer or anybody, pursuing a career in the arts, we are fortunate that we get to live sort of more in that leisure ethic space.
Oh, I love that so much. And what you just described is exactly what I'm getting at. Like, I feel like I'm always quote unquote working, but it brings me joy. It's just
Yes.
so, like I said, interwoven into my day, versus I would, go to the office and think, okay, we're not going to talk about Broadway while we're here. We're going to focus on M&A, which that's crazy that I would have those kinds of thoughts. But I was so afraid of people realizing that I had interests outside of the law, which maybe that's just a personal problem. And maybe there are people that come and they're, 100% themselves all the time. But I am such a creative person and I'm so obsessed with the arts. And I just think I was afraid of being found out as a fraud when I was showing up to my corporate job.
So interesting because at the end of the day, we are three-dimensional people. I dare us to try and find somebody, even people listening to this in the comments, like I dare you to try and tell us one person who is only one thing, like you are a mom, you are a writer, you are an agent, you do live in Florida, you have been a lawyer, like you've got all of these different personalities. So do I. And I think this is something I'm starting to feel about personal branding, because like, let's not sugarcoat it or mask it. Having an author brand is having a personal brand. That is exactly what you're describing when you say, I share things that light me up, or I share things that bring me joy. That's the human side of a brand. And at the end of the day, a personal brand is something you're known for, right? It's the things that make people say, oh, I need to send that to Lauren, or I'm scrolling and I'm like, that must have come from Lauren, because there's been enough repetition in the storytelling, in the visual direction, that we can immediately recognize it as you. That is what a personal brand means. But I think we've taken that so far by now in 2026, where personal brand means this or bust. And I don't know if it's spending more time on Substack and seeing the millennial urge to just like unravel and start over. Like, I don't know where it's coming from, but I think more and more people are starting to want to pull that thread of sharing old school Instagram, old school, the exact phrase you said earlier, the thing that brings me joy and lights me up. And whether that's the meal they made in their kitchen or their kids' toes at the beach, it has nothing to do with anything they're trying to promote, sell, share. But people are feeling drawn to make those human to human connections again. And there is still branding elements included in that storytelling.
Yep, I totally agree. And I feel like I get sent things all the time now where people are like, I saw this book deal announcement and it reminded me of you, or it sounds like something you might like. And I was like, yes, thank you. Like, okay, it's coming across. This is something I would like.
I feel seen.
Exactly.
But, also, like, you're talking to two audiences plus just the human side of everybody. Most authors are more than writers, as we just said, but maybe they have a day job that, like, when you were in the lawyer space, where they don't want to only share their writing, or maybe they don't want to share their day job, or maybe they're switching genres and they want to share to two different types of readers, or maybe they have multiple books in the same genre. And either way, they're talking about different subjects to the same type of group. Do you find yourself sort of balancing, like, okay, I've been talking agent wise for quite some time right now, like maybe I should pivot and share something a little more personally, or maybe I've been sharing a little too much about my editing and my manuscript and it's time to talk about my clients I'm representing? Do you feel some sort of tension with trying to get a few different storylines across at once?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's something I think about a lot. I want to promote my clients. I want to talk about what I'm doing as an agent, but then there is that, little voice in the back of my head that's like, okay, well, also don't want people to forget you're a writer too. So it definitely takes some work. I think, I'm a co-host of a podcast, The Prose Pros, and I think being on that podcast has helped me a lot because I show up to episodes as both author and agent. Mm-hmm. When I'm interviewing authors, we're talking about it from both sides. We're talking about the querying process, and I usually come to that with my agent hat on. But then once we start getting into craft and the life of an author, that's kind of where I'm showing up as my author side. So I think that has helped because, yeah, it is hard. And it's hard, too, to develop relationships. We were chatting right before we started about how this is so much of a relationship business. And I feel like sometimes when I'm, this is about to get kind of vulnerable, when I'm talking to other writers online, I do wonder sometimes, are you talking to me as an agent or as a fellow author? Because I want author community too. Like, I am also writing alone in the dark. I want people that I can, chat with and we can talk about what it's like to be an author. But especially when authors are unagented and they start chatting with me, part of me wonders like, do they think like this is their in? And like, I some days I'm like, I don't want to feel that way. And so I just have to kind of put that aside. But it is definitely a challenge. I think one thing that has helped me is just thinking about it in the way that I kind of already mentioned, like this is my life. Like it's a holistic thing. I am both. I am both an agent and an author, and they're both part of the publishing process. And I'm just going to share like from both perspectives, and you can follow along and like what you want, or and move on for the things that you don't like.
No, it's true. So, okay, let's get into really quickly just the different facets of your brand and your business, because yes, the Prose Pros, that's actually how we met. So back in December, I think it was, I had just put a thread out there on Threads, obviously, that said, like, I was ready to start promoting myself on more podcasts and everything else. And I just put that out there in the universe, and you and Tally responded saying, like, we have this show. We'd love to have you as a guest. And that actually started a really long relationship between the three of us. Well, you guys had one, but now I'm included now, where, like you said, I've now beta read for you. We've shared manuscripts together. We've had like random reader conversations. Tally has shared news with us before, it went public, that she's now an agent also. And before this too, we were even talking about just all the fun different ways you can connect and how the different people sort of overlap. Like I had a call the other day, like a brainstorm call with someone that you guys just had on as a guest on the show. So I think, there's such truth in what you're saying about the transactional side of things, where everyone is so busy and everyone is so goal oriented right now that it almost feels like I reach out when I need something sometimes. Like you just said, being on the receiving end of that sometimes feels icky when you just maybe want to have a conversation or just want to say hi. That's something that I think that we should all sort of like take a breather into and sort of maybe pin that piece of this conversation where, especially if down the line you feel like you might be needing a favor, or if you want to say, like, ask for something or transact in a way, just start by saying hello. Start by asking how somebody is doing. Maybe reopen the conversation as a friend first or a peer first. And, don't rush it. There's no urgency here. Like if you're reaching out in a state of urgency, you've probably waited a little too long, and that's manufactured. The urgency is then manufactured by your own timeline, but the person on the receiving end is not responsible for that. Like if they can only handle a hello at that moment, that's all that, that's okay.
And I think too, that's where this whole concept of literary citizenship is so awesome. Just like developing relationships organically, promoting each other's successes. I had hit a pivotal moment in the spring when I was re-entering the query trenches. And I remember thinking, is it weird for an agent to post about querying? And I kept coming back to it where I was like, I don't want people to think things about me because I'm an agent and I'm looking for an agent. And then I just kind of put all that aside and I was like, look, at the end of the day, I'm still a human writer who wants an agent, and I want support, and I want, people to help build me up in the way that I'm building them up, because this is a very vulnerable and taxing thing. It's very anxiety inducing to query. And I want to meet other querying writers. Like I putting my agent hat aside, I want that. And so I started posting about it, and I was so blown away with support that I was getting from people that were like, this is awesome. I mean, I've had people write to me now quite a few times over the summer that I inspired them to leave their agents and re-enter the querying trenches. And like, they are so much happier now and they're so excited. So here, talking about my story, something that I was really nervous about, it's led to these really genuine relationships. And, we're kind of supporting each other now as we're in that next phase where maybe if I hadn't posted about that and I was only posting about being an agent, like people wouldn't have felt like they could talk to me about this. So it's been really awesome. Like I'm just so glad. I'm always glad when I share about things, like if I had kept that to myself, I think I would have felt really alone in the process. And I'm really glad I shared.
I think that's so powerful. And honestly, even as somebody who's not a writer or I obviously write on Substack, but not somebody who is trying to write a book or get, signed by anybody, it's still really helpful to see that side of, I think sometimes we only see one side of the conversation, but the fact that you're straddling both sides of it almost makes you more trustworthy in a way. And not to obviously say every agent should also be an author in order to be trusted. But I feel like probably on the back end, whether people say it to you or not, they wonder, where is my manuscript? Why don't you want my manuscript? All of these different things. But the fact that you're showing yourself going through it also, and that you're also, on the side of the unresponses, the slush piles, the rejections, the mismatched relationships. It's just, you're not doing it on purpose to somebody. This is just the way that the industry sort of works.
Oh yeah, all the forum rejections, I was getting them. Like I was in the trenches, and someone said to me like, "Oh, I've heard of other agents that just using a relationship to get an agent," and I'm just like, "No, that's not for me. I want to do this the right way. I want to feel like I really earned this agent." But even in the process of getting my agent, the person who referred me to my eventual agent, because I do think there is so much to be said about relationships in this business and referrals and networking. The person who referred me, I met in a Facebook group like 4 years ago. And so how did I meet this person? Then 4 years later, she referred me to her agent, and that's the agent I signed with. So it's just like that. Talk about a slow burn. I had no idea that was going to happen.
Honestly, first of all, it's so cool. Second of all, I'm so glad you said that, because that is exactly why I open these episodes with how I know the person, because no one on this show is random. These are people within my community that I've met in random ways in different times, because it is a slow burn. And that is what we have to get back to remembering. And it's not 90s nostalgia or any sort of trend that we're seeing going on. It's the fact of relationships and keeping people in our worlds, because you just genuinely never know when that door might need to be opened or how. And sometimes I think about it. The person that I had on a previous episode, his name was Cole, but I met him not too long ago. But if I really traced back the tickets of how I got to meet Cole, that relationship started in 2018, between like the first person who introduced me to the first person who introduced me to the next person, who we did different work together. And then, Cole and I only met 6 months ago, but everything that led up to me then meeting Cole and being the trusted person for Cole's agent to email me and say, hey, Cole needs some support on his book, it came from a relationship that began in 2018. And you saying the same thing happening in a Facebook group back 4 years ago, again, urgency is manufactured 9 times out of 10. And I think a lot of authors have a hard time hearing that it takes a long time. Like, they know it takes a long time, but they don't ever really think their book is going to take a long time to sell in a way. But it is relationships. I know when I first met you and you were an agent, I asked you if you were interested in filling out a referrals form where, if I'm working with an author and I think they would be a right fit based on everything you tell me, are you comfortable with me making an introduction for you? So there are ways to make the relationships work to everybody's advantage, but none of that is a guaranteed yes, right? Like, people hear you're an agent and they're like, oh my God. They hear that I know agents and they're like, oh my God. But it's still up to you and your manuscript to sort of make that move.
Exactly. I think when I think about the relationship part of it, contacting authors for blurbs, stuff like that, collabing with someone to promote your book, that's all extra. You still have to sit down and write the book. But when I do the prose, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, okay, this unbelievable thriller author who I've admired for so many years, I'm absolutely going to reach out to her when it comes time to get a blurb. And maybe she says no and she doesn't have time, but when the publisher submits the author questionnaire and is like, what are some potential connections you have? I can say, oh, well, I've spoken to this person for 2 hours before, we're, on an email basis, I feel comfortable. And, that's something too, I will say, I'm really glad this has come up. I use the prose for my clients as well. So for example, my client, we haven't announced her deal yet, but she sold a rom-com. When the author questionnaire came in, she, I think, put down like a couple names of people. She was like, yeah, I can reach out to them. I was like, well, let me go through my network. And I started listing out people I've interviewed, people I've met through the podcast, people I've met through my own author journey. And I was like, I feel comfortable reaching out to all of these people. And she was like, oh my gosh, yes, like this is so exciting. So I always tell people like this podcast or, the stuff I'm doing online, I'm using it in both ways. Like I'm using it potentially for my clients as well. Like if I'm interviewing someone who's in a totally different genre than me, well, I also represent a lot of genres. And so I'm excited to make those connections for my authors too.
I honestly, that's the coolest thing I've ever, like, yes, I'm so glad you said that. I was going to say the coolest thing I've ever heard, but we do this together. So ever. But no, that's exactly what it is. It's like, when somebody works with you, when somebody works with me, they're hiring us with our network. And, we're not going to just go make a blind connection. There's always like that double consent and everything else. But it is really valuable to know that the people know people. And it really becomes one of those like detective boards with the red string going everywhere.
Yes, but you just never, I think when I look back, and you were saying like going back to your meeting in 2018 with Cole, mm-hmm. I look back at my whole life and I'm like, oh, this job, this internship, this was a connection. This was a relationship. Yes. This was something I followed up on for a year. I was once in law school called the queen of the follow-up because it was just like, I was just in your inbox just constantly. That's and I think that's why I used that in my agency interviews too, because I was like, I will never let an editor ghost me. Like, I think sometimes editors just do that, but I will be following up. I'm never just going to be like, oh, they haven't followed up to this last email, I'm done. No, right. Like I will still continue to reach out. And I just think the power of relationships is so strong. And to, again, bring it back 4 years ago, meeting someone. And in that time, she's had book deals. She was in book of the month and I have not had a book deal. And that, it's hard to sit back and watch that, but by supporting that person and continuing to show up and promote and be there for them, then when it was my time to query and I said to her, I'm querying. I actually at this point had already gotten an offer. She was like, I have to say, have you reached out to my agent? And I was like, she's closed. She's not even taking queries. And she said, I'm going to refer you. I'm sending, like, I think you're a great writer. I'm going to send it off. And now that's the person I ended up signing with. So like truly, you just don't know. You really don't know when your time's going to come.
So true. And I think, every message that you had privately with this person, it's talking to a friend, talking to a colleague, talking to a peer, and being yourself, essentially. And when you get to be yourself, it's easier, I think, to share multiple storylines because even as an author and you're writing characters, your character, how to write a character with multiple things. Like the character does not like these foods. The character walks like this. The character has these like gray feeling of emotion and these certain topics. And that's, I think, a more accurate way to approach how you show up in your brand at this point in time.
Oh, I love that. I completely agree. And really, if you want to get down to it, Tally, my co-host of the Prose Pros, and I met in the query trenches. She queried me. So
oh my God,
talk about showing up as your authentic self. If I had come into our offer call, because I offered on her manuscript and was like a corporate robot, she probably would have been like, okay, I'm not going to work with her. And I probably won't try to stay in touch with her.
Totally.
But instead, Tally was like, wow, she's brand new. I mean, it was my first offer call ever. So I understand why she didn't go with me. But she was really cool. And I felt like we had a genuine connection. And so then we, outside of, this agent author stuff, started messaging. And then in December, when she was like, hey, do you know anyone who might want to co-host this podcast with me? Like, I just feel like I might need a co-host. I had been thinking about getting back into podcasting for like years. And so I was ready. Like the opportunity came and I was ready to say yes. And I said yes. I said, what about me? Can I propose myself? Can I audition?
Like, as a matter of fact, I do know someone right here.
Exactly. But to be honest, that's another great example of just like not being afraid to promote yourself. Cause I remember
totally.
I sat on it. I probably thought about it for a couple of days and I was like, is this weird to say myself? Like, I really want to do this, but like, is it weird? Like, should I come up with a list of other people and put myself in the list maybe as like an alternative if they don't want to? And it's a lesson in not self-rejecting. I just went for it. I was just like, look, you can, no pressure, but like, I would really want to do this with you. And she said yes. And it's been honestly one of the highlights of 2026 for me.
It's such a good show. And I think you guys have gained so much credibility lately. And like, you get really cool guests and different types of guests too, which I think goes back to what you were saying earlier about showing up as both the agent and the author. And now she's also an agent and also an author too. So, between the authors who are more on the business side of everything or the fiction authors, or you had me, which is more on like the industry side. So I think you guys are doing a really good job of being a holistic resource for writers to sort of get that behind the curtain look at what it takes to sort of make it in this industry where it's just completely a question mark 9 times out of 10. So,
I mean, that's the goal. Like I always, after we record, I always bring up our mission to her. And that's the goal. It's just like, I felt so lost for so many years where I was just like, what is this? And I'm just like trying to peel back these layers of figuring out what publishing is. And so on these calls, and that's why we have such a diverse guest list, is just figuring out like, what is this industry and what can we share with our listeners so they're not so confused?
And how does it fit for both you and for her? Which I'm so glad you just brought it back to the mission, because I think that's the perfect tie-in for this entire episode.
Someone reposted me the other day, just like a big Substacker I really admire. And it was something like, she just reposted my account and was like, if you want to get into publishing or if you want to get published, Lauren's a great follow. And I was like, that's awesome. That's like honestly the best and nicest thing you could say about me, that's totally what you're gaining. Someone last night reached out to me, like a family friend, and was like, could I get your Instagram account so I could like send it to someone they're trying to write their first novel? And I'm like, yes, like I want people to feel like I'm a resource and like you can come to me, you can listen to my podcast, you can read articles I've written. Like I've really just trying, that's like when I promote myself, like that's what I'm trying to promote, is that you can come to me and you can ask questions and you can read things I've written and like kind of just figure out what all this is.
Absolutely. And you actually do quite a good job of that while maintaining personality, hence wearing your husband's shoes to the grocery store the other day. So.
That was truly an example of like, where is my brain? Like I am just on another planet. This morning I like put some skincare on my lips and I was like, oh my God, what is going on? Like I need to like refocus.
But you're okay with like, and again, you just shared that more privately, like with me here for us to share here. But you shared the shoe thing on Substack the other day and it was like a non-issue. I'm sure you pressed post and just kept going on.
Yeah, I think
about your day.
Thank you for saying that. I think that's like all these. Yeah, I just have all these thoughts in my head sometimes, and I'm like, you know what? I think this is kind of funny, and maybe someone will relate to this.
Yes.
And I'm already on here anyways, and I'm already. Actually, Tally said last night to me, she's like, wow, you're pretty active on like Substack notes. And I'm like, honestly, it's because it's the Tumblr girl in me. It's like the reposting,
me too.
The story sharing. I'm constantly reading and like I love a quote. Like I just love a quote that really impacts me. Like I was the girl that was like printing it out and like putting it on my wall.
Yes.
And so this is the equivalent. I'm like, if this resonates with someone else, like my job is done. Like that makes me so happy.
Yes. I hear you. And I honestly, like I had a hard time with this through line situation not so long ago because I know who I am in business. I know exactly like what my philosophies are. I know exactly how I help the authors I work with. But it's funny when you work in branding because like your brand becomes branding and that's really confusing sometimes. Like I am someone who 1000% does not believe publishing should exist in the silo that it exists in. There should be more Penguin Random House / Coach type collaborations going on all of the time. Like to me, that is the way that the world moves in this day and age. Is it's not only person to person relationships, it's business to business relationships as well. And once I gave myself permission to be like, everything that I care about has to do with the collaboration that comes from relationships, I now feel comfortable saying like, oh, in Ted Lasso last night, this made me think of X or blah, blah, blah. And it is to me like your shoe post of like, these are just the thoughts in my head. I said to somebody actually last night, because I'm watching Ted Lasso right now, your character X actually reminds me of this character in the show. And so since you guys don't have character art, it could be a cool concept to say if when you're, especially Ted Lasso has a new season coming out, let's compare our characters to the characters in this show. And
amazing.
That immediately tells you a lot about the book, like immediately tells you so many different things about the types of characters, the types of problems, the different types of relationship dynamics. So that's the way my brain works. And that's exactly what I do with my authors. So finding your through line, giving yourself an internal checkpoint of, yes, I'm a human. I'm allowed to share multiple things. I'm allowed to live in leisure ethic. I'm allowed to do all of these things, but also allowing yourself to have some boundaries and be like, you know what, like this actually serves no purpose other than to validate my ego or to do something else, and learning to check that at the door.
What you're saying is like, it's like you're in my brain. It's been something I've been struggling with, where I felt like, because I love TV, I love movies. And what happens is I watch a movie and I'm immediately turning to my husband and I'm like, oh my gosh, that character development. And I'm like, suddenly I'm making it into this like homework assignment. And I've been really trying to be able to just watch something lately.
Yes.
Like we watched Widow's Bay, which I cannot recommend.
So good. So good.
Of course, I'm already like, I want to see some comps to Widow's Bay. But at the time, I was like, this is so different than anything I usually watch or write. I'm just going to let it go and watch. And it was really nice. And like, I felt like it really like refilled my creative well, versus like, yeah, we're watching a couple other things right now where I feel like I'm always trying to like dig into like, oh, what was the B plot and blah, blah, blah. But It is an example though, like what you're describing of the way that like, all these things are just fitting in so naturally to my life. Like I went for a run this morning, listening to a publishing podcast. So like I'm spending time with my kids, I'm running, I'm out in the outdoors. I'm also getting inspired and maybe I'll share this podcast episode later. So these things are all interwoven, like to bring that back. But something you said too also just triggered something I want to share with the audience about remaining in control of your brand and not letting someone change it for you, because it really does affect how you then move forward. So I think it was what you were saying about trying to figure out what your through line is and like who you are and what you want to share. So this was my second agent. My first agent, I queried a rom-com. I was in the...
Oh my gosh, I can't picture that.
Right? I know. It's so funny because like if you had known me then, like I was a romance writer and now I'm like,
oh my gosh,
like in a different, you've read this book, like this is not, and I think this is better for me. Like I love this.
Yes. I think this like fits your personality and the way that you
I think so
speak
too.
And yeah.
Thank you. I really identify with what I'm doing now, but it was my first novel, which I feel like everyone has that first novel, but you just have to like get out of your system. It was like a New York City summer lawyer. It was very, honestly, if you read this, you're like, this is you. This is not the girls.
This was an example of write what you know in a way.
Exactly. It was like a lawyer who hated her job, who was becoming an author. I was like, okay, that's me.
You're like, I wrote a memoir. It's fine. Like
exactly. So funny. But I remember very clearly. So I signed with this agent. I was so excited. I told everyone I wrote a rom-com. And we signed, and as she's getting ready to pitch me and she's, putting together the pitch letter, she tells me, well, I've been thinking about it a lot and this is clearly women's fiction. And I was like, it is? Like, I was like, I'm a rom-com writer. Like, this is funny. This is romance. And she was like, no, this is very Emily Griffin. This is very Ellen Hilderbrand. And those are two authors I love. So I was kind of like, okay. And I remember talking to my husband and I was like, she knows best. Like if this is what's going to get me a career, I'm going to go with it. And I'm going to be a women's fiction author. And I changed all my bios and I was like, Lauren Kahn, women's fiction. And I like leaned into this, but it like, even now I like feel in my stomach, like this gut reaction of just like inauthenticity. Like I was like, that's not who I am. And that's not what I wrote. And the book didn't sell. But honestly, I'm not that surprised because here we were going down this road of like, it's not the book I wrote. It's not who I am. It's not what I was promoting. And I get kind of sad when I think about that experience because I just let someone essentially dictate my career. The next book I started working on was like women's fiction. And like, it just was so inauthentic. And I took the power back when I started writing a thriller. It was totally for me. It was an idea that I had. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this for fun. And as I got further down the road, I was like, yeah, though this is something, and I'm going to leave my agent and I'm going to get a new one. And we're going to go full force with this identity that is truly me. So for
That's
listeners,
amazing.
If someone proposes something and it is not authentic to you as a writer, like if you're on an agent offer call and they're coming in with a new book that's not the book you wrote, or a brand that is not the one you were going for, like you really need to sit with that and decide like, is this the agent for me? Because if it's not, like, I think keep querying.
Honestly, even with branding, like that is such a powerful story. If anybody in your life recommends something that doesn't feel authentic to you, I guess that what it really comes down to is like, be careful who you trust. Like, pay attention to who you choose to trust with your career.
Yeah. Yeah, and exactly. And I think focusing on authenticity, another just kind of random tip that I had, if you have limited time, if you're like, I'm trying to write a manuscript, I don't really have a ton of time to be just like creating all this like, social on Canva. When I was like in the throes of finishing my manuscript, I would record like a 10-second video of myself typing at like 5 a.m. And at the end of the week, I would compile those and post it to TikTok. And it was like messy. Like this was not like Christopher Nolan style filmography. That's why I put it on TikTok, because I was like, I feel like people are just posting
They
whatever.
like raw stuff there. Yeah.
Exactly. And I was getting like, I mean, it's not a ton, but I was getting like hundreds of followers and like, hundreds of views and likes, and actually thousands of views of people. And then people in the comments being like, go, 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 like you've got this. And like I was saying in the caption, like, day 50 of waking up before my babies to write. And like people were just like really supportive on there. And I think about that a lot, because like that was truly just me just using what I had. Like I barely had any time to write. And so that free time I was using to write. But can I like kind of try to start building something at the same time? Let me just like,
Yes.
this is like me in the dark. It does not get more authentic in the dark in a robe, like with my glasses
Totally.
on, just like so tired, like just trying to get this manuscript out. And I did it. And so then when I shared that I got an agent, like I had this kind of like built-in people like following along that were just like, yay, you did it.
It's so true. And it's actually amazing. And that was that version of you wearing your husband's shoes to the grocery store. Like that is exactly, you've been authentic this whole time, and it just shows up differently on different platforms. And I do also tell authors all the time when they'll reach out to me or I'm in an interview and they're like, oh, what's the best time to start working on your brand? I will always say, like, you should have started already, but if you didn't, do not start when you're in the throes of writing or the throes of editing, because the overwhelm will lead to like it's just too much. There's going to be too many negative feelings. It's going to become a have to versus a want to. The audience will pick up on that. And at the end of the day, to tie it literally all back to the relationship component, readers love connecting with their authors. Authors love connecting with authors. Writers love connecting with agents. Everybody in this industry just loves to connect with one another, and they can read when it feels icky or transactional. They want the relationship. And I actually had a conversation with somebody who's a are we calling them book stackers on Substack?
Oh, I love it.
What are we calling them? I'm assuming
I like
book
book
stacker.
stacker.
Let's go with that. I had a conversation with a book stacker last week, and I asked her, what's your favorite part of, this wasn't an interview or anything. It was just a little coffee chat. And I was just like, what's your favorite thing about writing about books on Substack? And she literally said the different authors that she gets to meet. And I think I have said that to every single client I've spoken to since then, where I'm just like, at the end of the day, remember, like, it's not that serious. Your readers are just so excited to connect with you. And approaching it through everything you just said, like the different storylines, being authentic, not overthinking it, showing up for the people who are in your community, they're going to want to read your book just because you wrote it. And readers, if we start to promote our books the way readers promote books, I think authors will find a lot more success on their platforms because,
yeah,
right? Because, a reader is like, oh my God, this is 5 stars. I'm obsessed with it,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. An author is like, my book description is X, Y, and Z. And it's like,
love
which one are you going to actually listen to at that point,
that might be one of the best things for me that you've said on this episode. That was totally like a mindset shift. Wow, that's awesome. I love
Thank
that.
you.
I'm going to keep use that. Yeah, Jessica.
Obviously, you and I can talk all day, and
I
maybe
know,
we'll
I'm like,
talk again
just keep
on
going.
camera very soon. But we could 1000% have everybody follow you documenting your journey to publishing and all of the cool books that you've decided to represent through your Substack, through your Instagram, through the Pros. So we will link everything. But if there's anywhere specific you want to send people, do you want to just share that here?
Yeah, I'm pretty much everywhere at Lauren J. Pecan. I do have two middle names. I ended up keeping my maiden name as like a second middle name. So Lauren Jennifer Paler Kahn.
Nice.
But Kahn is spelled Khan, but I'm pretty much, everywhere there. That's my website, laurenjpcon.com. And then, Substack, Instagram, all over the place.
Perfect. And let's let that be the final lesson for authors. Secure your name everywhere you go. Secure your name on every platform, because look at how easy it was for Lauren to just say, like, I'm everywhere at this exact same handle. It's her. So that means if somebody Googles, it's your name that pops up. You don't want people to like have to Google your name and they find a different username and they wonder if it's you, and it's author here, writes here.
So true. Oh, yeah. And that's why, honestly, I keep the JP, because there are a lot of Lauren Kahns. There are a lot of Lauren Palers. There's actually a very famous like bartender named Lauren Paler that I get her emails.
It kind of sounds familiar, but I don't know why.
Won like a Netflix like mixology show, and I'm like, I've gotten her emails before, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go to
Lauren.
We're gonna change it all up.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here. It has been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so awesome. I'm so glad we've connected, become friends. Who knew, seeing your thread would lead us here. So thank you so much.
Yeah, shoot your shot, people. You never know, like, what the worst thing something that can happen is somebody says no or doesn't answer. But
amen.
All right. Well, have a great day, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Bye.